Good afternoon. My name is David Clark, and welcome to the Interstate Cooperation Committee. Today on the agenda, we will be hearing 2 bills and 1 resolution, and also passing the committee rules. At this time, if we could just open with prayer, Representative Cook.
You for all the many blessings of life, God. We thank you for this time that we have to come together, Lord, and do the people of Georgia's work. Pray, God, that you would bless us with wisdom, and Lord, that you would give us the discernment to know the right things to do for the citizens of Georgia. It's in Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to, you should all have your committee rules in front of you, and I'll give you a minute or two to just kind of glance over it, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer that.
Make a motion to approve the rules.
I'm going to give it a minute or two and then come back to you. Thank you, Representative. All right, at this time, I'd like to take up the motion to a vote. Second? Any opposed? Motion approved. At this time, we're going to hear from Representative Dave Belton on House Bill 26 by substitute and also House Bill 39.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you don't mind, I'll be assisted by Dr. Anita Brown. Anita Brown, you want to make a quick introduction of yourself?
Yes, my name is Dr. Anita Brown. I am a clinical psychologist and chair of the Legal and Legislative Affairs Committee of the Georgia Psychological Association, which is a prime motivator behind this bill.
Thanks very much. I've got a lot of pieces of paper in front of you. I do appreciate the committees looking at this bill. The first piece of paper is the color. It's a document from the Department of Defense. It's the Pentagon. So you know this body has passed over 23 new laws to help our military, almost $70 million in the last couple of years due to the work of the Military War Affairs Working Group and all the people in the General Council Assembly, and I really do appreciate all that. This is a document that's showing what the Pentagon report on Georgia is at the moment, and the things in red, of course, are the things we need to work on, and the things in yellow are things we almost got correct, and then things in green are things that they're looking for that we've already done. So what we're talking about today is like the seventh thing down, the licensing compacts recognizing service members and military spouses in yellow. That's what we're working on today. I bring before you House Bill 26. It's Lima Charlie 41 17 14 substitute. This bill actually passed unanimously last year. Joyce Chandler had the bill. It passed, and it ran into some trouble in the Senate. We've corrected, the only thing we've added to the bill that we've corrected that, or there was a senator there that did have a problem with one piece of the language. If you look at line 134, he wanted a satisfactory fingerprint check report into this bill. So lines 134 through 134 to line 142 is the only thing we've changed since the last reiteration. Again, it passed unanimously from the House. And just to what is a compact? A compact is basically just an agreement by a bunch of states that they're going to join together to make things, I think the wording is to protect the public, ensure access to healthcare services, and remove unnecessary barriers. Currently, 7 states have already done this compact. I can name them: Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New England, Nebraska, thank you, Missouri, Illinois. Due to the Pentagon's request, and eight more are looking at doing this or trying to do this: North Dakota, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and Georgia. And another couple are also thinking about Texas, Wisconsin, Ohio, and Kentucky. So basically, allow these create a cooperative agreement so that usually in medicine, medicine, nursing, physical therapy, and psychology. Today we're looking at House Bill 26 is the psychology piece. And again, it's basically just an agreement that to allow physical psychologists to use telemedicine via almost any video form or telemedicine, which of course is going to help the rural areas as well. Is there any questions about the bill?
Any questions? Number 9.
Hi, Representative Donna McLeod here. I wanted to, so telemedicine, is it basically where a doctor is on a phone with the patient and having that ability to prescribe based on a description?
First of all, this covers psychology. Psychologists do not prescribe in Georgia.
Okay.
It covers all forms of psychological work. We actually call it telepsychology, but it authorizes the use of any form of electronic communication interstate, which is not allowed by law at this point, so that a psychologist who meets certain credentials will be able to email, telephone, VCR, anything else electronic with patients or clients in other states.
And how do you verify that they're communicating with somebody who's able to do that?
There are many ways that at this point telemedicine uses to verify that the person you're speaking to, if you're looking at the person,
right,
that helps. But there are
emails, not so much.
There are other ways, and this is all in the way that telepsychology is done at this point anyway. So there are safety measures, fallback measures. Sometimes in some settings there's another person that checks the person into the facility where the telecommunications is taking place. But we're pretty sure that we've got that part of the technology.
Yeah, just want to make sure that whoever, especially the patient, is getting the right person and they're telling them the right thing.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for bringing this piece of legislation. A question I had that you actually referenced earlier, maybe you can speak to it just a little bit further for me. The lines 134 through 142 you said that you added. Can you just explain really briefly why we'd be adding this fingerprint portion outside of a senator having an issue with that? With all due respect to that senator.
Yes. If I may speak to that on his behalf, sir?
Yes,
If I
ma'am.
may. The compact itself and the model language, the standard language that's in every compact for every state that passes this, gives each state licensing board a 10-year window to establish a background check. They will use that information as they see fit to vet psychologists who want to do telepsychology under the e-passport, which is the credential for this. And what it does is it actually raises the standard of care across all the states, in part addressing your issue that we know that this person that you're speaking to is legitimate, does not have any kind of a background issue that might mitigate against wanting to have them practice telepsychology. So the Georgia Psychology Board has entertained this as a requirement of SIPACT, and they are willing to move forward in implementing a background check for all psychologists who want to utilize telepsychology across state lines.
Okay, thank you for your answer. Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, one further, and again to this point, but I want to be clear. The compact itself is not going to require this portion. This is something we can choose to do, correct?
No, it is something that is required by
Okay.
the compact, the bill language.
Right.
And it will be required of every state that enters into the compact.
So one further, if I might, you said this was added, so it wasn't in there last year and it wasn't required last year, but now the compacts that have been passed or do include this from the other states as well, right?
It was required last year, it just wasn't an issue for anyone. And so what we have done, I think, is put that language in the preamble to the model language of the compact. It has always been a part of the model bill that is adopted across the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Kendrick.
Thanks for being here. I have a similar question to Representative Cook. So starting on page or line 155 throughout the rest of the bill, is this the same language that is adopted by the administration that you're copying and essentially inserting into the bill?
That is correct. That is the compact language. Everything before that is Georgia preamble to that compact.
And then, and if I can ask a follow-up question, Mr. Chair, my follow-up question is then, if anything changes on the administration level, we then have to come back and actually change we would have to change this again if something else changes with the administration?
You mean for the compact? Or
Yes.
For Georgia changes?
No, if something changed for the actual compact, because if lines 155 throughout the rest of the bill is language that you're including from the administration in each one of the state's compacts.
That's right.
If that changes, so then we have to come back and change it again, correct?
I'm going to defer to my colleague, Janet Orwig, who's with the Association of State and Provincial Boards of Psychology. I'm going to look for a shake of the head. But yes, I think it would require a legislative change, and that's why we've been very careful in what's included in the model portion. But
Hi, I'm Janet Orwig. I'm with the Association of State and Provincial Psychology Boards. And that is correct. If it is something in the compact language that has to be changed, it's very similar to what happened to the nursing compact because they wanted to go back and add some components and they retired that current compact and brought a new one. Would have to do that. We tried to address this language to be as broad as possible to not have to do that, having learned from what they had to do.
18.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my question is a little different. So all psychologists are licensed by their states, right? Individual states.
that's correct.
How are are we sure that there's enough overlap between the licensing, so that a person who is licensed in Georgia and is speaking to a psychologist in Georgia is going to get the same, I guess, standard or level of care as someone licensed in another state? And I don't want to name another state because I don't want y'all to feel like I'm disparaging any other states. So that's my question. Thank you.
Yes, and that is indeed one of the whole points of this compact, is that it elevates the standard of care across all states and makes it more uniform, particularly in the telepsychology realm. A psychologist licensed in their home state has to also meet some additional criteria to get the credential, which is called the e-passport. They must have a doctoral degree. They must have a certain number of CE or continuing education hours in telepsychology, and every year that they have the e-passport, they have to have a minimum number of continuing education credits in telepsychology. And so those are two things that sort of elevate the level of care for those who have an e-passport and are doing telepsychology.
Thank you.
And I also have to add, this is going to be helping, geographically isolated areas, the underserved areas. It's just, so it's all the broadband and the rural development we're talking about. This is going to be ideally for these sort of situations.
Just to be brief, I would also say it also allows for people whose families move, particularly military families, to another state to have continuity of care across state lines. If that other state is a SIPAC state, it allows for extended family sessions, and it allows for a greater dispensation of specialty care. If I'm a person who needs a child psychologist and there's no one in my geographic location, but there's one in the neighboring state or in another state, then I can get specialty care for opioid addiction, for child care, for autism, for a number of specialties that psychologists practice, but we're just not fully dispersed.
Chairman Belton, is it not true that this bill passed last year unanimously through the House?
That's correct, sir.
Thank you. 17.
Yes, hi, I'm Representative Kim Schofield. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to address the broadband component of this because we definitely have some challenges when it comes the state of expanding broadband capacity. So what level would you need to make sure that you guys are up to capacity or speed for telepsychology?
And it's both the technology, the capacity, as well as the software.
Right.
There are prescribed software that are confidential that, Skype is not one of them, that allows for that confidentiality to take place. And it's my understanding that every catchment area in the state of Georgia has a location where there's sufficient broadband capacity to be able to maybe not do this from home for the client involved, but to go to this central location, and the capacity is indeed there. So yes, that is an issue in rural areas specifically, but we are pretty sure that if not in your own home, there might be a central location. Usually it's in a school where you can have that capability to do the telecommunications needed.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a follow-up question? Just how many sites are there? Do you know?
And that, I'm sorry, I cannot answer from the technology point of view. My sense is that it's every catchment area, mental health catchment area that has a site. I could check, but I'm not quite sure whether it's mental health or medical catchment area.
Thank you. I'd like to know the difference.
8.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Representative Viola Davis, House District 87. Being a veteran and a critical care nurse, could you explain, this is like the practice of the future.
Yes.
This has been going on for quite a while, and I think in a lot of ways Georgia is catching up to what has happened in a number of other states. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. Thank you for your service, and I too am a veteran. Practicing as an Army psychologist, the VA has just released a study that states the penetration and the efficacy of telehealth is, to say the least, amazing. And yes, it is the future of healthcare. For psychology, most of the work that we do is communication verbally. And so for this, it's just a perfect segue into what needs to be done to carry this practice forward to give greater access and continuity of care. So yes, for the military family, you know, when you deploy or when your family member goes and we go back home, or the family members go back home, it's nice to be able to continue family therapy, supportive care. The Yellow Ribbon Campaign is exactly defined to do that, to help family members who are dispersed across geographic regions continue the care that they had started at whatever military installation they just left.
I'm glad I have someone smart here that can answer these questions.
Thank you for just bringing such a military-friendly bill that I know would help a lot, and definitely on the Military Working Committee, they talked about this all the time. So thank you. At this time, I'm not going to take any more questions, but I know it's going to be a hearing only, but I would like to entertain a motion at this time. Representative Dubnik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Chairman Belton, thank you for bringing this. I know this is good for as we said, rural Georgia, our veterans, our children, and Mr. Chairman, at this time, I make a motion this bill do pass.
Second? Second.
Was it? I didn't know it was hearing only. Do we have to suspend the rule? I wasn't indicated. Or do you have to move on to the...
Representative Dubnik, can you make a motion to suspend the rules?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry I didn't see on here that it was hearing only, so I will make a motion that we temporarily suspend the rules of this committee to allow for this bill to move forward with the process.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Approved. Thank you. Approved. House Bill 26, substitute LC 41171 will move to the Rules Committee. All opposed, please say nay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. The ayes win, and the House Bill 26, substitute LC 41171 will move forward to the Rules Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Good job.
At this time, we will hear from Representative Belton on House Bill 39.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I present to you House Bill 39, Lima Charlie 41, 1686. I'd like to introduce Barney Poole, the chairman of Legislative Committees of Physical Therapy Association of Georgia.
Hi, I'm Dr. Barney Poole. I'm a physical therapist. I am the chair of the Physical Therapy Association of Georgia's Legislative Committee.
Thank you, sir. This bill, again, is the exact same thing we're doing. It's a little bit less tricky because it's not psychology. It's not, but we're doing basically the same thing we did before with the bill. This bill, physical therapy bill compact's been around quite a long time. 19 states have passed this already. We're actually one of the few that have not. Oklahoma, Utah, Texas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Missouri, Iowa, New Hampshire, Louisiana, South Carolina, North Carolina, Kentucky, West Virginia, New Jersey, Arizona, Colorado, Nebraska, Washington, Montana, and 3 states are pending legislation, Georgia, Virginia, and Michigan. I'll note that all of our military competitors have already passed this or are trying to pass this at this time. But it's basically the same thing. Physical therapists, this compact will eliminate administrative barriers and wait times for physical therapists to start practicing in Georgia when they move here. Improves consumer access to physical therapy. Applying for new licenses, when again a military spouse, especially for this, goes into Georgia, it's very time consuming, difficult, and costly for that spouse to get a Georgia license. So this will allow that spouse to operate here in Georgia. And again, it's just to protect the public, ensure access to healthcare services, and remove unnecessary barriers in government. And again, it's one of the items on this colorful page that the Pentagon has asked us to pass. And I forgot to tell you, I show you that letter, there's a letter on your desk as well from the Pentagon asking for this bill to be passed. I'd like to entertain any questions, sir.
At this time, are there any questions? Number 9.
Thank you, Chairman. I wanted to ask, so I can be clear about this. So what was the problem before that caused this bill to be generated? What was the obstacles that was being faced by someone, especially a spouse, coming here?
Well, basically, like I was a military, so my mom, I was a teacher. So whenever we moved to a new base, my mom had to get a new teaching license. Actually, Representative Al Williams was the one who started all this. He passed a bill to allow licensures a lot of things. This is just one of those things that he can't do because it's a healthcare kind of thing. Nursing, doctors, physical therapy, psychologists. So I'm really continuing Representative Al Williams' work, to be honest with you. But basically, when that spouse comes and lives in Georgia, now the spouse can't work for 6 months, maybe a year, waiting for a license to appear. And they finally appear, he gets the license, and the spouse could work for a year and then moves again to go ahead.
So the spouse coming in would be a qualified person coming in. It's just the amount of time it would take them to be able to be employed and get acclimated to their new state, and you're trying to basically eliminate that and say, hey, they're ready to go. I just want to clarify where the bill was coming from and what the thought
that's
process
exactly
was.
Right. Thank you. Good question.
Representative Kendrick.
So thank you for this work. So you almost answered my question, which was this is such a good opportunity to help military families. So you will have to come back to ask us for every single health care thing that needs to be taken care of, or is there something broadly that you can do? So that
I know there's a Senate bill that's doing the doctors, and there may be a nursing bill coming through as well. But I've been told that.
So you can't do like a healthcare professionals all in one.
Well, I think each compact, because of what we're talking about, is very, very different. It has very unique restrictions. Go ahead.
Each profession has their own practice act, which is state set, and so each profession would have to have individually. And please, our state board does a great job, but when people come into the state, they have to gather all of the information from the previous state where the person worked. And they do a great job of getting all that information collected and in front of the state board in order to be approved, but it does take a while. When I was president of the Physical Therapy Association, one of the main complaints I got was, gosh, it's taken so long to get my license, and mostly from the military folks.
And again, this doesn't just for the military. It's for any physical therapist who walks in. The military wants it real bad, but it's for anyone.
Thank you, Chairman Belton, and again, thank you for bringing a another very military-friendly bill that really will do a lot to help our military bases, our military and personnel, and their significant others. Representative Jones?
Mr. Chairman, just at the appropriate time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and consider this bill for passage at the committee level, if the chairman so chooses.
So at this time, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
to pass.
I'd like to make a motion that we temporarily suspend the rules and allow House Bill 39 to be brought for a full vote for the full committee.
Do I have a second? So I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. With that, House Bill 39 will move forward, LC 411686.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. With that, we have one more thing that we need to do is to hear House Resolution 51 by Representative Mark Morris. The floor is yours, Representative.
Very simple bill, one designed to ensure that Georgia will remain the best state to do business in today and in the future. This is a House resolution that we dropped last year. For those of you that were here, you will remember that it passed the House with 159 to 3. I know one of the folks that did not, one of those three indicated that there was a concern about funding on this bill. I'm proud to report we didn't spend $1 on this last year, okay? I hope to spend $2 this year, but so what this bill is designed to do is to create a joint commission to deal with our North Georgia boundary in the state of North Carolina and in Tennessee. For over 200 years, those states have encroached upon our boundaries. Our state charter and theirs, North Carolina and Tennessee, indicate that the boundary should be at the 35th parallel. It's currently about 34.6. There's roughly 60 miles of land area, about a half a mile deep, that runs across the northern part of the state that is not properly marked. We want to be able to engage the states of both Tennessee and North Carolina to bring this to a resolution under our terms, not one that would eventually might end up in a court case or a federal case from there. And I certainly yield for questions.
With that, number 11.
My question is, so is Tennessee and North Carolina doing a similar resolution to bring?
They are not at this time, that I'm aware of anyway.
Okay, so this resolution is to appoint a commission to work with the surveyors, but not necessarily with the two disputed states.
These are designed to, Representative, to engage the states of North Carolina and Tennessee from Georgia's perspective. The Senate will, in all likelihood, as they did last year, drop a resolution as well. So 3 members would be from the House, 3 members would be from the Senate, and last year the Speaker appointed the committee members on that. Right now, it's not an issue for these states because they've encroached upon us. Yeah. So they're not really rushing out to resolve their issue, where it's more from the state of Georgia standpoint.
Representative Caldwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative. This is, I mean, very genuinely one of the most important things I think we can be working on. You didn't mention, but obviously the Tennessee River is an important component involved in this. And for the well-being and future of Atlanta, I think we got to get this border rectified and fixed and back to the original charter. I know in 2013, when I started here, we passed a resolution that was trying to do something similar to this, and even gave the Attorney General permission to take suit if needed. I guess I know we passed this last year. when are we going to get this thing resolved? Like, eventually we're going to either sit down at the table for it with them or sit in a courtroom, right? Because my worry is 25 years from now, we're having the same conversation and our successors are sitting here going, yeah, let's pull together another commission they don't want to join. So.
Very good. I mean, technically this issue's been going on for over 200 years
Right.
now. And there are times that, we get serious about it and then something happens like a civil war or world war, or, a depression, and the list goes on and on. But we have to, the reason that we're picking this up and going with it again this year is to continue to show that we're of interest here, we're building our case. Either those states will work with us or we'll seek other means. And that, of course, now that certainly is up to the governor. We have a governor that's in charge, and those decisions will be made at that level.
Well, as you have conversations about it, please encourage on my behalf too, because we are at 200 years is long enough to argue over a border that's clearly marked in all three charters.
Thank you.
Let's make it happen.
And I will go on record that a few years ago, the state of Tennessee sent 2 pallets of water to the Capitol. As when this came up, and I will go on record now, if the water shows up at the Capitol, it will be loaded in my pickup truck. It will be taken and donated to the South Forsyth High School marching band.
Representative Gertler.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing the bill. I liked your comment. As a fiscal conservative, how did the Joint Commission not spend any money for this last bill that we passed throughout?
Yeah,
that's just interesting to me.
Absolutely. We did everything over the telephone. We did not meet in person last year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Number 18.
Hi. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Really quickly, is there anything outside of the Tennessee River that sits in this disputed area? Any monument or something special that's going to make Tennessee or North Carolina not want to give up this particular area, or is this just specifically about land and lines?
Well, currently there are 30,000 people living in this area that call themselves citizens of the state of Tennessee. I don't think we want to change people's lives in this. If they believe that they're Tennesseans, then hey, not everybody can be from Georgia. God bless them. And we don't want to disturb those people, their lives and those things, but we do need to come to an agreement on what the border is because, see, 3 things has to happen. The first is once you fix a border, it has to be agreed upon, in this case, let's say Tennessee or North Carolina. Then it has to be agreed upon and ratified by the state of Georgia. And then we take those 2 to Washington, and then the federal government will ratify them. As it stands now, out of those 4 parties, the only person that's ratified the border is the state of Tennessee. We've never accepted the fixed border that was done in 1818.
Can I ask a really quick follow-up? I actually went to school in Tennessee, so one thing I know about Tennessee is that unless things have changed, I don't believe they have a state income tax. Is that
That's
true?
my understanding.
So basically, this changing this would subject 30,000 people to Georgia state income tax that were not paying income tax.
Of course,
before.
that's a long way down the road, but yes, if we were to go back to that border. Now, we have options on agreeing on what the border could be, okay? So right now, we said we have what it is, but we could come to an agreement that says in certain areas that we'll negotiate, exactly, is what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Number 9.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Morris, we have had a conversation about this. So tell me what exactly, if you understand, how exactly were these lines determined? What, 200-something years ago? How were they determined, and how did Tennessee was at the forefront and Georgia wasn't? I'm kind of confused because, of course, all these lines are kind of imaginary lines, right, based on your longitude and latitude and stuff.
So when originally you'll recall that the Georgia border ran all the way to the Mississippi River, and when we came into agreement that we would break up into Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi, the northern border was established as the 35th parallel. In 1818, the states of Tennessee and Georgia hired two gentlemen. Both their first names were James, Cammick and Gaines. They went to fix the border at that time, and there were three things that went wrong in that process. The first thing was they showed up to do with a naval sextant to do land surveying, so they had the wrong tools. Second thing is that they were in a very hostile territory. The Indian Wars were going on at that time, and literally these men were trying to do a job and not get killed at the same time. And then finally, they started out in the wrong place. And, so you had three things really going against them. But 8 years later, James Cammick found out when he was fixing the border in Alabama, he actually noted that they had started in the wrong place and the border in Georgia was wrong, and notified both parties at that time.
So right now, you're just basically trying to see if we can move forward and even starting that discussion and getting the ball rolling on seeing if this could be established for permanently.
Come to a final resolution is what we're
Okay.
attempting to do.
All right.
With that, there are no more questions, and I'd like to entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I'd make a motion for adoption.
Do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman,
I have a motion.
I believe you have to suspend rules.
What's this?
I don't.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Not rules.
All right.
Thank you, Representative.
I'm sorry.
With that, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say no. With that, House Resolution 51 LC 289061 ER passes. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.